Okay, so we looked at the harmony already in the woodwinds. And again, if you want to orchestrate, you have to first know what the harmony is. You're not going to be able to orchestrate if you don't know the harmonies, okay? Orchestration is harmony. I cannot say it enough. You must understand harmony if you want to get better. There's no other way around it. There's no other way. Harmony is not about timbre. It's not about, people think, oh, okay, Ravel, oh, I love the timbre, it's so colorful. It's all about the harmony. Those timbres were impossible without the harmony already there. And once you understand the harmony, you'll realize there's not many choices in terms of timbre. Very few choices. Almost none. So we talked about the harmony for the winds. And we discussed it was clearly a dominant in the previous video. Now we're going to proceed to the strings. You may want to proceed directly to the brass and percussion. Why is that? Well, because in the presentation of the score, it's the next group. But you don't have to think in that way. So be wary that you let the paper tell you what to do. Okay? And in this particular style and in general, I find you have to go very quickly to the strings. The strings contain a lot of information, which we're going to talk about in just a second. So we get to the strings, and again, we see two basic events, okay? We see the rhythmic top, and then we see the bottom is just kind of reinforcement, dun, 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 okay? Technically, we could say there's three events because we have the true bass down here. And then you have the violas, which are, reinforcing the bass, but they cannot play the bass, okay? But I would say the listener would certainly perceive two basic events, okay, if they had to pause in time and verify. And part of your job is to be a scientist and to know how the listener is going to perceive. You're also a scientist. So what are the strings doing? Well, likely they're not doing anything radically different from the winds, okay? But let's verify. Okay, they're doing the exact same thing as the winds, okay? And this is, I don't know there's an official name for it, but I would call it a classical orchestration, or a classic, not classical, but a classic orchestration. In French, I'd say orchestration classique, which would be less confusing. And basically, it's you're doubling winds and strings. Okay, it works super, super well because the strings are divisi, which can kind of weaken them a little bit. But if you tell them forte, they have they have these kind of accents. They're going to be quite present. And then you have the flutes, the oboes and the clarinets, reinforcing that. It's going to feel very strong, very present, okay? But you'll notice that there's quite a large gap between the basses of the string, meaning the double bass and the cellos, and this quite exciting top, right? From the B flat and the cellos to the B flat in the violin 2, and there's 2 octaves in between that. So that, if not filled in, is going to feel a little bit vide, as we say in French. It's going to feel a bit empty, okay? Now, if we look at the violas, they're here. That helps a little bit, but not sufficiently, okay? That's who knows, I'd have to examine why they're on there in another note. But within the string section, that helps fill the gap a little bit, but still we're going to feel like there's stuff missing. So that's, of course, where the brass come in. So we have, let's focus first on the lower instruments. Okay, we'll get to the horns in a separate video. So we have the tuba down here. And then we have the trombones. Okay, and the trombones technically are not the bass because the bass is clearly just to be flat, but they're certainly working with the bass, reinforcing the harmony. And that is partly helping fill in the gap, but we have to also look at the horns, but we're not quite there. I also want to show you the xylophone. Those are actually not the correct notes. Xylophone is a transposing instrument, so what's written is going to sound an octave higher. So the xylophone is really reinforcing the winds and the upper strings. I'm going to try to add the xylophone, but I don't know if my hands can figure it out. Now you may be wondering, well, why doesn't the xylophone just do the exact same thing as the strings? Because clearly it's orally, it's being associated with the upper region where that is the main idea. However, this maybe is partly personal taste and just partly a reality, is the xylophone is very piercing. Okay. And I think in this texture, if it was doing the same rhythm, if it's doing this, I think it would just cover up everything else. All of our attention would go to the. So just be careful when you have percussion, and it's being often used, especially melodic percussion, is often used to reinforce, give more bite, more punch, more clarity, more color to the strings and winds. Be careful it doesn't cover up. So a good way around this is to just reinforce kind of like the melody, in this case, the accents.